we've got a very full day ahead of us on this third day of the dog bylaw and policy hearing. So we do need to keep to timing in fairness to our submitters. And I thank everybody for being so considerate over the last couple of days. So Ms. Clark, I think we are ready for our first submitter.
First up is submitter 2947, Helen Sansom, on page 212.
Hello, Ms. Sansom, and I see you are already in the room. Well done. So the next 10 minutes is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Just to make it clear, we met yesterday. I was speaking on behalf of Waikato Gun Dog Club. Today, I am here to speak for myself as a dog owner in the Waikato district. I own 3 dogs. They're trained gun dogs. They're also my companions, and I like to have time with them as much as possible. I run them in gun dog trials. In fact, one of my dogs is a field trial champion, of which we're quite proud. I take pride in my dogs being calm, obedient, sociable, and easy to take different places out in public, wherever I want to go with them. I wanted to talk briefly about off-lead dog exercise areas. I'm fortunate enough to not need to use them on a regular basis. We do have a very good off-lead dog exercise area in Tikawasha, near where I live, as Jan will be aware. It's of good size and adequate, in fact, very good facilities for decent exercise for reasonable sized dogs. You couldn't throw a tennis ball, even with one of those tennis ball throwers. You'd have to be a shot putter to get the tennis ball to the far end of the exercise area. So it's a reasonably good, spacious area, and I think it's a model to be looked at when council are considering making further designated off-lead areas for people to exercise their dogs who are not privileged enough to have access to other land. Moving on to talk about the rural proposal of rural permits. I wanted to ask, is there need for change? So this is a policy, I believe, a policy review and a proposed changes to that policy. Is the model really broken? How big is the problem in the rural areas? I went to a meeting early in this process at Ngaruawahia on the Point Domain. The meeting was with Tracy Oakes, Janet Gibb, and Eugene Patterson, and they were there to talk to us dog owners about the proposals because it had already caused considerable amounts of alarm. The meeting was held at very short notice, so there weren't many people who were suddenly able to drop everything to attend. We were informed by Tracy that there were problems, welfare problems, and nuisance problems, and we were given some figures. The figures we were given: over the past 5 years, there'd been 156 cases of neglect. There'd been 58 complaints, which, when you, on the basis, in the rural area, this is rural district, on the basis of 5 years, I picked up immediately that actually, to me, didn't sound like an extortionate number. It didn't sound terribly high for a 5-year period. I then asked Tracy how many properties, how many actual owners that involved. And she came, and the number has subsequently been confirmed as 7 just 7 over 5 years. So since then, I've been somewhat mystified that I know some of the cases were quite concerning, and they needed resolving, and it didn't sound as if they'd been able to be resolved in a short term. They'd been mumbling on, and Tracy was frustrated because she wasn't able to deal with them for some reason. And it still mystifies me as to how this permitting system is going to change that. Non-compliant dog owners who are not looking after their animals properly, allowing them to roam, allowing excess noise, etc., and not registering their animals, are hardly likely to consent and deal with a further permit system. We then moved on to how animal control had budgeted their time and funds to carry out inspections of over 900 properties. So that's I believe, the number of properties with registered dogs on them in the rural district, in a period of 18 months, because after 18 months, they are, I believe, intending to start to charge for these extra permits. These are the properties who have more than 2 dogs on them. So we've not heard of how this has been budgeted, how animal control propose that they're going to carry this out without the rest of their work being impacted. His Worship our Mayor reminded us the other day that animal control is subsidised by the ratepayer to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. So has this work been done? How many hours and kilometres extra are the animal control vehicles going to make? So these are questions I would like to ask. I'm not sure that council are prepared to answer questions in these sessions, but it needs considering. Suggestions. How about this council consider incentive and education when we're looking at animal or dog control registration, etc. Incentive and education as opposed to penalisation. Other councils, other North Island councils, have models based on incentive with a heavily discounting system for responsible owners, for owners with registered dogs, for owners who belong to affiliated clubs, rather than arbitrary extra checks and charges over the whole sum of dog owners in the rural district. Isn't that rather wasting time and energy when the resources should be focused on the problems, not the properties that don't have problems?
Ms. Sanson, you've got 1.5 minutes left, and I see somebody has a question for you. Are you prepared to take questions at this point?
That was going to be my next.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre.
Carry on.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you again for your second individual submission. I'm just interested to know, when you mention about those councils that are incentivising, do you know which those councils are? So we can actually just have a wee look for our information about the bylaws and policies.
I was somewhat shocked to hear yesterday that this work hasn't been done in council or by animal control. So one of the councils I'm talking about is Matamata Piarco. So if you yeah, have a look at that. But there are others as well.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Sansom? If not,
oh, sorry, I couldn't get to my hand fast enough. Look,
no, you go.
Thanks for your submission, Helen. Look, the question is asked, why do we review it? Because legally we're obligated to review all our policies and bylaws every 5 years. We don't have a choice in that, so we have to do it. So this is part of that process. The other thing I would just suggest also, when you talk about incentives actually cost money. It means it costs other people money, and that's the trouble. And when you move that responsibility to non-dog owners, then the other 83,000 people tell us, hey, why am I paying for dog owners? So you understand the dilemma we get into. So you can't have discounts or incentives without someone else paying that bill.
You can,
Look,
am I allowed to
a
reply?
very quick comment. You're actually well over time, but just quickly.
I just suggest that you have a look at Matamata Piako and how it's run there.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sansom, and thank you for coming in again.
Thank you.
I think we have the next submitter in the waiting room, please.
Yes, we do. Next submitter is 3041 Jan Etok on page 196.
Hello, Ms. Etok. We can see you there, but you need to unmute yourself.
Hello.
That sounded like an unmute button. Welcome. Thank you very much for your submission, which we have read. And the next 10 minutes are all yours to tell us what the highlights are.
Okay, thank you. I'm a person of few words and slow thinking, so probably not a lot, but I shall give it a go. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you.
My name is Jan Etok, and I live with my husband Andrew, and at present we have 8 dogs. We live rurally in Waikato. I'm a full-time stay-at-home doggy mum. So a bit of background is that we moved to this property in early 2004. An animal control officer visited us and assessed what he saw, and from there we were granted a selected owner's status. So our dogs have come and gone over the years, all have been registered with the local council. So it's just a matter of looking at the registrations, coming along, scanning the dogs, matching the microchips, and you can see all the dogs are here that are registered. We breed occasionally, and our kennel club registered. We exhibit at dog shows, and in the past I've also done some agility. Previous submitters have already said this, but I will repeat it anyway. Responsible breeders are responsible for any puppy they breed, and at any time during the dog's lifetime, a responsible breeder will take a dog back for whatever reason. Now, over the years, we have had dogs returned to us due to owner's death or going into retirement home or other personal problems. Any that have come back have been registered with the council and or have been found new homes. As I've said, this is that being in rural, we are in a position to occasionally house and care for cavaliers we have bred or cavaliers belonging to friends. This need for temporary care may be a hospital appointment or surgery, as recently I had a friend who had a hip replacement and we cared for her 2 dogs until she was able to look after them herself. Also had a friend who wanted to go for a day shopping in Auckland and didn't want to leave her dog alone, and brought it here. And also, as of last week, a friend who actually went to Wellington to settle her daughter in university, and we looked after her dog. I also have people or friends that come along and say, can we come along, have a coffee, let our dogs play in your paddock, because it's a secure area for dogs to play, and this is what we do as well. So secondly, to caring for my own dogs, my other thing is I run a Facebook group which has got over 2,500 members, and this is for Cavalier owners or prospective owners within New Zealand. The aim of the group is education, care and welfare, advice for potential puppy owners, referrals to reputable breeders, rehoming and rescue of Cavaliers, meet up for something, and anybody is in temporary need of care for their Cavalier for whatever reason. The support for one another among the dog owning population is simply awesome. We do have a huge event at Woodlands. I'm sure you all know Woodlands in Gordonton.
Ms. Etok, you're cutting in and out there. I'm just wondering if it's your fibre or broadband. I'm sorry, we can't hear you at the moment. In fact, I think your screen has frozen. Ms. Clark or Matt, would you like to just give her a call and see if you can sort out what the issue is? And I think we should just move on to the next person. I think the screen is frozen, and I don't know whether she can hear us or not. Thank you.
Yep, so next submitter is 3289 Camilla Cameron on page 28.
There you are, Ms. Cameron. Hello and welcome. So we've got your submission. We have read it in the way that we've read all the others. So the next 10 minutes, tell us what you want us to hear. Thank you. It's all yours.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for having me today. My name is Cam Cameron. I am a Tuakau resident of 15 years. I own 2 dogs who absolutely are part of our family and we really adore. And my background is that I work in education with expertise in professional learning and behaviour management. So what I wanted to raise today is based around 3 points. So the first point is around context, because I wanted to draw attention to the wider context in which the dog control bylaw and policy sit and make connections between these proposals and the District Council's vision of livable, thriving and connected communities. And the point that livability for people, a people-friendly community, is also a dog-friendly community from my perspective. And even though we're talking about dog control, dog behaviour is intrinsically connected to human behaviour. So when we think about how we want our communities to look with the way that we see dogs interacting in the community, it really is about the people who those dogs belong to. In New Zealand, we've got growing rates of dog ownership. So in 2020, there were about 34% of households that owned at least 1 dog, which interestingly is about the same proportion of people who voted in the Waikato District Council local body elections in 2019. So it is a fair chunk of people. And I think that recognising the growth that especially the northern parts of the Waikato district are facing, that growth in the people population, it includes the growth in the dog population. So if we want to maximise the benefits and the the recreational opportunities for dogs and minimise the nuisance. I think those things are two sides of the same coin, because dogs that are well socialised and well exercised are dogs that are less likely to be posing a nuisance to the rest of the community. So my second point, apart from the context in which this sits, is the idea of consistency. I found it quite difficult to understand what the criteria are that have been applied to our dog exercise areas. I know that we're really fortunate in Tuakau to have 4 dog exercise areas, one of which we're standing to lose at the moment, and specifically meaning off-leash dog exercise areas. Each of them has got something slightly different, but none of them I would consider to be a purpose created dog park. Just down the road in Pokeno, there is a purpose-built dog park there that is fully fenced. It's got double gates, it's got water on site, it's got shade, it's got dog-specific signage, it's got facilities for waste disposal. And I think that there maybe is a slight nuanced difference between a dog exercise area and a dog park. And I actually think that we probably need to have both of those things available. And most of the time, it's my opinion that dogs and people can interact quite happily and share spaces without any major concerns. When those things don't happen, I think we need to have really strong data and evidence on which to make decisions and base policy, so that we're not making knee-jerk reactions, but that we're actually responding to what is happening in a proportional way to the issues that are occurring. So I'd really love to see a set of principles developed in consultation with the community to guide council's approach to dog exercise areas, and for those to be consistently applied across the district. My third point is about community. So within the Waikato district, we are a really diverse collection of communities. So we've got small villages, we've got a lot of rural people, we've got affluent places, we've got more deprived places. And it's my position that the people of the local areas know their area best, geographically and socially. And I think that local communities should be involved in decision making about dogs in their communities. Our dogs and their humans need safe places to learn, and safe, specifically designed dog parks, as well as off-leash exercise areas that they can graduate to once owners have got confidence in their dog's training. But you can't just go straight from having a puppy if you live in a built-up residential area and just having a small backyard to train that dog. You need somewhere safe as an intermediate step, and that's going to allow for some of those mistakes to make while your dog's learning and while people are learning. And when you have dog parks, you actually create a community of people around that dog park. So I would love to see a real emphasis placed on this, and I think that losing dog parks while we're gaining population and gaining dogs it's inconsistent to me.
Thank you, Ms. Cameron. That's very clearly put. Thank you for that. We have a question from Councillor Gibb for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Hi, Cam. Hi. Very good submission and very clearly spoken. I'm interested in your views, and I'm sure all the councillors probably agree with everything you've just said about the education, the parks, etc. But for us to provide that, of course, that will cost money. And you've mentioned how many, we're very diverse. We've got lots of villages, towns, affluent, deprived, etc. And theoretically, if we followed your theory, we would have lots of dog parks in every single village and town we have in our district.
Absolutely, so, that sounds wonderful.
And isn't that wonderful? If we could win lotto, that would be great. How we pay for that's another issue, and we tend to look at services for specific people under a targeted rate type of system. And I just wanted your thoughts on if if we developed, and it's just pie in the sky thinking, if we developed a fund for dog parks and we applied a targeted rate to the dog owners on top of their registration, how do you think that would go down? Do you think people would be prepared to consider that?
Well, I think first and foremost, we've got high growth in our district, and each of those subdivisions and new developments comes with development contributions. And so I would like to see part of those development contributions that are allocated to reserves, for those reserves to be dog-friendly reserves. I know that there are user pays areas in other places in the country and overseas, and I have myself taken my dog to paid services. So I think that there would be a market for that, and there could potentially be an appetite for that. But I think that would need to sit within a context of a generally dog-friendly environment and a dog-friendly district.
Okay, thanks for your answer. We'll be thinking on a lot of things. Thank you.
Cool.
Councillor Church, very quick question from you.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. So thanks, Cam. The up in Tuaco in the North Waikato areas, we've got part of the bylaw is you can actually have your dogs on lead and control in the main streets, and also we've got joint parks of play and your dogs as a dog-free dog run area. Other parts of the council area don't have that as part of the bylaw. Have you got any thoughts around those concepts as to those differences or how your experience is?
So I absolutely love that the Tuaco community has been able to say that we think it's important that we can have our dogs down the main street, and that you know, within the climate change situation, that I shouldn't have to get in my car to take my dog to go and get exercise. So I think having those shared spaces is really good, and having communities able to say what's important to them. Probably I would hate to see fewer places available for our dogs to exercise, but I would love to see for some of those areas to be improved so that we could have more secure fencing, so that, you know, I have one dog who is she's nearly
Cameron, I think I'm going to have to stop you there. You're way over time, but I think you have made your point.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of answering that question. Thank you very much. Thank you for making the time.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Ms. Clark.
I believe Jan is back in the waiting room. She's phoning in.
Okay. Thank you.
Here she is.
Hello, Ms. Etop. Can you hear us?
I can, yes.
And we can hear you. Look, thank you for persevering with your technology. You've got another 6 minutes left, so please crack on. Thank you.
Well, I'm not sure where you heard me up to. Can you remind me where you'd heard me to, please?
Look, I'm sorry, we've had a couple of other submitters since then. I don't recall exactly where you were.
Oh, if I may, it was you're talking about woodlands, about Gordonton.
Oh.
Thank you. Oh gosh. Okay then. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Right. So yes, I said that we had our big meetup at the yeah. So I went on to then say I was against the introduction of permits. Reasons being is that we already have the selected owner status. We may breed a litter and keep 1 or 2 pups to run on for showing. We may buy in a new show dog or import a new show dog. We may have a dog returned due to an owner's death, etc. We may offer to care for a friend's cavalier. We may be dealing with a cavalier we've been told needs rehoming. Permits will affect my freedom of choice for my chosen hobby, as in the changing numbers of show dogs. Permits will come at a cost, and what will happen to the selected owner discount, one would assume that this will discontinue. So therefore, there's not only a cost of a permit, so there's also a raise in registration fees. Will permits be calculated on the number of existing dogs on a property at that time, or will a permit be granted on a number that you come, like we have 8, or can we just say, well, we'll have a permit for 10, 12, 20, or, you know, come up with a number so that if numbers did change, it wouldn't automatically mean applying for a new permit. Regarding contacting neighbours, we have good neighbours. In the recent storms, we had a tree come down and wiped out one of our fences. And the neighbour came, helped us remove that and helped us get the fence back up. And even though we have good neighbours, I wouldn't want you going to ask them as to how many dogs they think we should have. Same as I wouldn't want you to come to me asking me how many dogs that I think they should have. Yeah, that's it on the permit part. On the exercise area part, there's been a huge increase of dog ownership during the trying times of the last few years, the COVID times. People seeking comfort and companionship. They see the value of dogs as an additional member of the family. The decrease in dog exercise areas or making them on leash is just plain crazy and completely opposite to what is actually needed. Personally, from my point of view, I just don't understand the anti-dog attitude of council in Waikato, and some parts of New Zealand are really, they're coming on board and they're appreciating the cavaliers, appreciate that dogs do need, you know, to have exercise. Back in England, I used to take my dogs out running free every day. You know, dogs under control are welcome off lead in parks, country estates, moorland, woodlands, historic sites, some shops, the non-food shops, cafes, and many more places. And there are, of course, places the dogs are not allowed, such as the National Trust properties. So I can understand restrictions around the DOC land. And it's a well-known fact that dogs need to interact with others, with other dogs and with other people to be social. But we won't dwell on socialisation, as it's been talked about previously by submitters who are far more experienced with dogs than I am. And that's just about all I have to say.
Well, thank you very much. And as I say, thank you also for persevering with the technology. I think you've made some very good points, and we do understand very clearly where you're coming from. Are there any questions for Ms. Etok? There would appear not. So thank you very much. Again, thank you for persevering, and thank you very much for your submission.
Okay, right. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Ms. Clark, do we have, I'm having some trouble with my screen, so I'm not going to touch anything. Do we have anybody in the waiting room, please?
Yep, we do. Yep. Up next is submitter 3157, Mary Lyle Brennan on page 128.
Hello, Ms. Lyle Brennan. We can see, oh, and you've unmuted yourself. Beautiful. Thank you very much for your submission. We appreciate that you took the time to do this, and it's obviously a very comprehensive one. So thank you for your thinking in that. You've got 10 minutes. We have read it. So you've got 10 minutes just to give us the salient highlights out of it that you want us to consider. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk. I'm as nervous as hell.
Just relax. We're just here to listen to you.
Firstly, I'd just like to apologise again to the poor lady who rang me the other day to change my speaking time. I had just had my dog euthanized and was on my way home with her, and I'd just like to thank her for being so understanding.
I'm sorry to hear that. Just take a deep breath and take your time.
Okay. Now, my brain works in medical terms, so bear with me. Councillor Smith, You have a heart attack and you go to the hospital. They tell you you need heart bypass surgery. Do you want me to do your surgery? No, you don't, because I work in respiratory. I can run respiratory tests. I can get you ready for surgery, but then you're going to want a cardiac surgeon. A dog control officer is much like me. They have the Dog Control Act. Me, I have my scope of practice. Now, the SPCA, they are like cardiac surgeons. They have the Animal Welfare Act. They are warranted. Cardiac surgeons have their own scope of practice. Councillor Smith, how do you get the best outcome? By me and the cardiac surgeon working together. 7 properties with dogs found in neglected conditions. If dog control haven't got the outcome for these dogs, it's not because they don't have permits. It's because they haven't been using the legislation and resources they already have in the form of working as a cohesive team with the SPCA. Sorry, I have a dog trying to get the crumbs out of the bottom of a treat packet. Back in 2015, council tried to introduce permits for dogs. I believe the limit was 5. They included farmers, and federated farmers came out in force against permits. 161 submissions. That's what it took for council to see permits for rural areas were not what voters wanted. I quote Gavin Iron, "I think it is a good thing, and it says people are taking an interest." There were some very good submissions on this issue, and it has influenced council, end quote. Huntley farmer David Fogarty said, quote, "The permit proposal was unworkable and would discourage good owners from registering their dogs," end quote. Come 2022, council again attempts to introduce permits, this time excluding farmers, with federated farmers now coming out in support, because let's face it, if it doesn't affect you, it must be good. 664 submissions, with the vast majority opposing council's proposal. Tracy Oakes said, council wants to introduce permits because of welfare issues. Of 7 rural properties over a 5-year period containing 156 dogs found in neglectful conditions. Disgusting. Would permitting have saved these dogs? No, because most of these dogs weren't registered. Over that 5-year period, 0.3% of all complaints to council dog control were rural. Just quickly on the removal of off-leash dog parks, and to be perfectly honest with you, I've never used one. My closest one is 32.5 k's away. How can council have such opposing views? On one hand, permits for welfare. On the other, removal of dog parks, which is 100% anti-welfare. Resources. I've never before seen a proposal that hasn't included a detailed business case. From figures given up to us from dog control through the OIA, they are currently running at a close to $1 million deficit. Tracy has said that there won't be additional staff for permitting, and so where are you directing resources from to accomplish this massive task? Surely not from urban areas such as Harris Street. That's me. Thank you. I have one quick question, Pam, if I may, just before I forget. I believe there will be a summary report of the whole proceeding and after this is all finished, and was wondering when that would be available to the public.
Well, I can answer that very quickly, and we do have a question waiting. Pardon me. That will take quite a bit of time, as you can imagine, trying to collate the input from nearly 700 submitters and put them into the salient points that we need to consider. But when that is available, that will go on the website.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I can't give you a precise time, but it's obviously before we need them to do that. But for Councillor Smith, you had a question.
Thank you.
Good morning, Councillor Smith.
Good morning. Now, I'm not sure why you've singled me out, but my question will be prefaced by this. I'm aware that there's some comments on social media that have been attributed to me, and those words are not my words, as I was talked over at the time by another councillor, and those words have been attributed to me. So if it's the reason that you're directing questions at me, I'd like to know why.
Not at all, sir. It was simply a name I picked out of the hat.
That's fine. I'm pleased that that's the simple case. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much all for your time.
I think he would prefer a cardiac surgeon for his heart surgery, though.
He definitely would.
I'm sure. Look, thank you very much. And I am, again, my sympathies for you with your dog. I know what that's like for your dog.
Thank you very much, Pam. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good day.
Ms. Clark, do we have another?
Yes, we do. Start next is submitted 2884 Sarah McDonald on page 241.
Thank you very much. Ms. McDonald, sorry, I didn't see you there sitting on the side of my screen.
No, I just popped in. Can you hear me?
Perfectly, and I can see you. I apologise. Look, thank you very much for your submission. And you've gone into quite a bit of detail in that. Please give us your highlights, and you've got 10 minutes. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I don't have a great deal to say, but I'm a rural dog owner. We have one dog, and my main point with the what's proposed is I think that the 2-dog limit on rural properties is a bit heavy-handed and burdening the 99.8% of dogs that are completely fine with way more restrictions and therefore costs than they need to be. So I think the council should take a far more hands-off approach and let people look after their dogs responsibly. The council's own statistics show we've got about 15,000 dogs in the district. Over 5 years, 156 dogs being found in poor conditions. That gives us about 31 dogs a year. So out of every 1,000 dogs in the district, 2 were found in poor condition. 998 dogs out of 1,000 being not found in poor condition really doesn't signal that there's a big problem that needs to be burdening all your rural dog owners with more rules and costs. So I think that if the government or other bodies were looking at the success rate of having 998 out of 1,000 children or whatever dogs in this instance, not in a state of neglect, I think that's a pretty good win. We're talking about 0.2% of dogs. It could be that some of those dogs were the same dog. It could be that some of those visits were the same property. Could be that they were the same owners. So, you could take that down to being, even less of an issue. The council is suggesting that anyone who wants more than 2 dogs on their rural property has to go through extra costs and compliance. And I think it's just, people don't need that much compliance. I mean, you can see by the lack of other dogs causing problems and owners having issues, then surely there are better priorities to be putting the rules onto. And also, even if you have these rules, is it going to stop those very few irresponsible owners from actually still being a problem? Other districts, I've just moved from South Waikato. I'm not sure what the rules are there, but I know it's more than 2. Waipa district, I think, have 5-dog rule, and I think that's the same for in town. I think it's across the whole district. I'm not sure, but I haven't found another district that has limits rural dogs to 2. Considering you've got a lot of farmers and working dogs, I know they'd be sort of exempt from it. But I look around me at the properties around here. There's a lot of really large properties. There's a lot of people who love their dogs, take great care of them, and well, we only have 1 dog. We're not going to get another one. Maybe we might get 2, but no ambitions to have multiple dogs. I know there's plenty of reasons why people end up with more than 2 dogs on their property. And they could be really small dogs. They could be lap dogs and house dogs and things. Or you've got your working dogs and your pet dogs. 2 is just really, really restrictive. And it's often the people in the country who've got a lot of space. Their dogs are getting really good exercise as well. They're well taken care of for the vast majority of the time. So my submission really is just looking at that 2-dog rule and thinking, for all the resources that have to go into this, the cost of compliance, the staff time, what that does to the overall cost for council, the rules that people have got, hoops that people have got to jump through when they're really not part of the problem, just seems excessive.
Thank you. Actually, I do have a question for you.
Yes.
While others think about it. Can you just give me your opinion, please, on the you've mentioned both the Te Awa Reserve and the Tamahiri Reserve, and can you just tell me which one do you use? Which in your opinion is preferable and why? I mean, you've mentioned.
Well, being on a rural property, we don't need to use a dog exercise area because we've got a good hectare or so to exercise our dog, and we walk it locally. I am familiar with the Tamahiri Reserve area, and I just think that the proposal to fence in the little corner there just doesn't seem like very well thought out. The area itself, when it's fenced in, will be really quite small. It's in a pokey little corner of the reserve, and I just think, personally, I would not take my dog all the way to the reserve to have it run around the little corner, in that little corner section. I'm not sure how many people would really make use of it. It's pretty unattractive for an area and pretty small. And I've been in the reserve on many occasions during the week, sort of throughout the week. There are heaps of people who walk their dogs there off lead. There are groups that meet up, groups of dog owners who have dogs who get together for dog socialization and things. And in my experience of what I've seen, I've never seen any problems with dogs. And people with dogs who want to give them a good run around, take them around, a large amount of that area.
I think that's really helpful. Mayor Allen, you had a question there? And you're on mute.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. I was talking to the person I share my office with. Hi, Sarah. Hey, look, thanks for your submission. Very, very well done and really, really good. And 2 things. One's a comment and one's a question. Comment is, thanks for acknowledging that not all dog owners are good owners. There are some bad ones. Unfortunately, the last couple of days, we've had a number of people that think all dog owners are great. And unfortunately, we do, across the spectrum, have some that are not so great.
Yeah.
Secondly, is it sort of comes to a question, and actually a very good counsellor of mine, Councillor Gibb, asked before you came on. It was in relation to exercise areas, and I don't think a lot of people understand why some of the areas we're actually having to surrender because we don't actually own one of them, and specifically, and things like that. But the question she actually asked, which I thought was really good, is if dog owners want these areas, are they prepared to pay an annual levy to actually have access to them? Why I say that is, and it's a really good question, because I also have a holiday home on the Coromandel where I use the facilities up there. They implemented a policy about 4 years ago. If you want to use the boat ramps up there, which I do, you actually have to buy a usage of that, which costs you about $100 each. So it's a user pay if you use it. The rest of the people in town that don't have boats or visitors don't have boats don't have to pay it. Same thing. Council is trying to identify user pay for things. So how would you feel about that? Knowing you don't have to use one, but if you were having to use one?
Would that be a situation where all dog owners have to pay for dog exercise areas, even if they don't use them?
Well, it's a little bit like a lot of us all pay for libraries, and I don't use them either. So no. I suppose it is.
Yeah, no, I would be completely against that. That's what rates cover, but I think probably the amount of, it'd be interesting to see what proportion of dog owners use dog exercise areas, but I'd say in my neighbourhood, there are heaps of people with dogs. I don't know anyone who takes their dog to a dog exercise area, because when you're rural, we don't need one. We were forced to pay for one? Absolutely not. Boat ramps are easy because where we go holiday, we don't use the boat ramp, but there is a fee, but then you get a key to unlock the boat ramp. So you're only using if you pay for it. User pays has to be truly user pays if you're going to add on something like that. It can't be all dog owners are going to pay for this.
Good answer, Sarah.
And you'll get a lot of pushback because so many people don't use them. And what will happen is you'll have this little dog exercise area. So if I just finish one point, you'll have this little dog exercise area in Tamahiri Reserve. And if it's user pays, no one's going to use it. Nah. There's heaps of other places to take your dog. And then you're probably running into problems. I think your opening it will be so difficult.
I have another question for you from Councillor Church, briefly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're in deliberations, so this is not a given, but let's say, as an example, if the permits were for rural dogs, if that happened as a scenario, what's your feeling around farming dogs and those other rural dogs being exempt?
From having, is this for more than 2 dogs or just any rural dog? Being permitted and not being exempt, for any other dogs other than their working dogs. So I'm not quite sure, but I think I don't have a problem with farm dogs being exempt from that. I mean, they are working dogs. They're like staff. That's part of having a farm. I think I'm not quite sure what the permit would be for, but I don't think they should be counted in your dog count, if you like, or subject to extra rules. Just again, it's just more. Or you're not. I'm fine with them being exempt. In short answer.
Thank you. Great.
Look,
thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your very good and interesting submission. So I appreciate that you took time to do it. Thank you.
Thanks very much for listening, everyone. Thank you.
Ms. Clark, is this our final one before?
Second to last, but we're jumping ahead one person.
Yes.
Next up is submitter 2901, Richard Shepherd, on page 234.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Shepherd. Can you hear us? Mr. Shepherd, I suspect you may be on mute. We can see you. We can see you, but we can't hear you. Good morning, Mr. Shepherd. If you could take yourself off mute, please.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely, we can hear you now. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for your submission. We have read it. we'd like you just to cover the highlights of it, give us your opinions, and you've got the next 10 minutes to do so.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, my name's Richard Shepherd. I live in Hakaramata Road and have done for 17 years. We were once rural and now we're country living, but there are a number of issues with this new bylaw that I have concerns over, and one of them is the 2-dog or 3-dog permit, and also the reductions in the dog off-lead areas that need to be, I believe, increased. One of the things that that I see as an issue is that the fact that I can't see how this is ever going to save or help dogs that are being mistreated. It seems to be a sort of a round the sort of, well, what would you call it? It's not actually addressing the issue of dogs. If dogs are going to be misused or abused, it can be 1, 2, 3, 4 dogs in the property. It doesn't necessarily have to be the just 3 or more. It's going to make a significant issue. The other thing too is that being selected as a say basically just as a pet owner that this is applying to, and not say farmers or working dogs. I find that a bit of an issue as well. You guys have probably all heard it before, but one of the things is too that we bought the property thinking that we would have a different lifestyle than somebody in an urban area, that we wouldn't affect neighbours. So if we had dogs, there would be a less impact than, say, if we were in a 1/4 acre section in town. Now that issue, people would have bought properties, I'm not saying everyone, but people with dogs, they have bought them for this type of lifestyle, and now they're having to have a permit like somebody in an urban area to have more than 3 dogs. And I think that it's an encroach on our rights. Over the years, I believe that it seems to be a policy of people making rules and regulations to try and capture a few, but it impacts on everybody, and here we are going down this road with this dog, 2 versus 3 with a permit, where in the past we were able to do it, now we can't. And so that's the rules have changed, and the people that probably look after their dogs very well are being impacted on that. And it's not the ones, you're not capturing the ones that are breaking the law. You're actually capturing the ones that are, I believe, that actually want to support it. Now, what'll happen, I believe, and this is only my opinion, but what'll happen is that these laws people will just ignore, and it'll be one of these things that it'll be just pulled out of the hat when it's needed. But there's ways around it. The people will turn around and not register dogs. There's lots of different ways, and so then it becomes how are you going to enforce these bylaws? Are you going to turn around and employ more staff to go around and patrol them? You look now at the off-lead areas in the Waikato district, or where they have to be on lead, and people just run their dogs off lead now. So is it going to make a difference? I don't think so. And is that worth the weighing up of people's rights or people's freedoms being curtailed? So that's the dog issue. The other one is that if you really want to impact on dogs in parks or anything else, maybe that you need to actually be able to provide the facilities that people will actually want to take their dogs, put them into the dog parks. I look at Horatu and I think that's a fantastic facility for dogs. It's a big enough area. If there's dog issues, the dogs, you can call your dog, move them away from other areas. Some of the small ones that are down in, say, Hakanoa or in Narrawahia, they're too small. And so the dogs, you know, that have a flight or fight syndrome, they can't run away from other dogs. So that's when you'll get more issues with dogs fighting. But to be able to provide a facility, then you're not going to have the dogs defecating in parks or anything else. You're going to be able to turn around and have them in a controlled environment off lead. Anyway, I do feel strongly about it. I think that at the end of the day, it's really about rights and protection of dogs. If you need to protect the dogs, or then make a proper bylaw that's going to protect them. So that's really.
Thank you very much. We have a question for you from Mayor Allen.
Yep.
Hi, Richard. How are you?
Good.
Look, thanks for your submission. Look, and I think I mentioned this to the previous submitter, but I don't think we've actually advertised the fact through this process. The dog run at Horatu doesn't belong to council. It belongs to AFCO or Tully's. We've lost the lease on that and won't be renewed. So consequently, that's why that park we're losing it. So it's not as if council wants to take it away. Its time is up with us and with AFCO. So I just want everybody who may be watching on YouTube or otherwise to understand that's the reason why that park is going.
Yeah, well, it's a shame. It is a great asset to have, and maybe that the council need to look at duplicating them in the other areas where they are large enough. You know, you look at Narrawahia, it's got a great vacant block of land right beside it, and that park could be extended. And if it was, then you'll probably find there'd be a greater use in it.
Thank you. Look, you've made some very good points about the size of dog parks, and thank you for that. You also just made the comment that, you know, something was just your opinion, but actually everybody's opinion counts. So I want to thank you on behalf of the panel for taking the time to put your submission in, and also to persevere with technology and speak to us. So thank you very much for that.
Okay then, thank you.
Thank you. Is that the end of our submitters for the morning?
There was one left, Richard, Peter Martin, but when I rang him, he was driving and he didn't sound like he was going to. Okay, so maybe we need, we have room to include him in the afternoon. It's just a comment that I want to make, again, as Mayor Allen's pointed out, for those watching the YouTube. If you're not seeing councillors looking directly into the screen, it's not because they're not engaged. It is because most of us work with two screens. And so the camera may be on one screen, but our documents may be on another screen. So when you see people looking away, please don't take that as a mark of not being engaged. It's actually that we're looking in a different direction. So thank you. We will resume again this afternoon at 1 o'clock. And